Good night or good evening, I guess. And tonight we are going to work on a scratch project that I have been playing with. And sort of my motivation for this was I always wanted to be able to draw my cats. And because, you know, they go and I kind of always want to have a nice sort of picture of them. But I'm not a big drawer. And when I do draw, I get really tight because I'm used to doing abstract. So what I did is I found this fun sort of project where if you take an image, you can scratch it onto plastic and then create this drawing. Okay, so this is the plastic with the image behind it. Okay, so if I take off, and I've been working on this for off and on for like the week. Now I've just scratched it some more, so it's a little bit lighter than it was yesterday. But that's how my drawing is turning out so far. So kind of fun.
Looks awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it. So what I've done is I'm just using a piece of acrylic or piece of plastic. And, you know, you can find this stuff lots of different places.
Like our basement. Like
my basement. Or you can even go, like Michael sells little pieces of this also, but not this kind, but it's thinner. And so you can pick up that at Michael's. I have several pieces of the thicker stuff, but I also have some thin stuff. This is like plastic out of a IKEA frame. Has like a little plastic coating on it and stuff like that. So you could use something like that. I have several pieces of it. This is more like a framing acrylic, but any acrylic like this would work. The one thing that you have to do is when you're doing your image, and I made note of this in the instructions, when you're taking an image of an animal or something like that, what you have to, or even a person, mostly a person, when you take the picture and make it black and white, you also have to flip it because your face is not the same on both sides, right? So if you're, because I'm scratching it opposite and then I'm going to look at the other side. So if I did it just the way the normal picture is, then it might look a little bit off when you actually look at the picture. And it certainly would be if it was a person. You know, I look at my face and I've got, you know, there's differences in my eyes, there's difference in my hair, and I've got some spots here that just, you know, if it was flipped, if my picture was flipped, it would look weird. So anyway.
I don't know what you mean by flipped. Sorry.
So the photo, so here's like, this is this side. So I just flipped it horizontally. So it'd be like doing a mirror, right? So this is not, see this line here? Normally in the picture, it would be on this side.
So it's a mirror.
But yeah, so
How did you get the image that you're scratching? That's what I don't get.
So what I did is I have it on my computer and I went into my computer, made it black and white, and then I mirrored the image.
Yeah.
Right. Then I printed it out on a piece of paper. Okay.
Okay.
So this is just a printed out piece of paper, and then that's where I'm scratching. You can see, well, actually, if I hold it up like that, you can see the white parts. That's where I've just been scratching.
Yeah, I see that now. I guess I didn't realize from your instructions that you had to have printed out the
picture
image of this to use.
Yeah. So that's sort of what we're going to do. Now, when I'm doing this, the scratching tool that I'm just using, you know, like a utility blade, but it's a fairly sharp one. So I can just sit there and sort of scratch at it. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to switch the camera now so that you can see my work surface here. And then we can start. Now, I don't think you're going to want to sit here for like a whole hour.
Or the week.
Or the week.
Yeah.
Sit there scratching, because it actually it's kind of like that sound of the nails on the chalkboard. So I'll be doing this in the kitchen and Bill's like, "What are you doing?" It's like,
quit it.
Sounds terrible. Anyway, so I did bring the one that I'm doing of Ripley, but then I did bring another cat of mine. I've had cats a lot. And
whole set.
Yeah, I have a whole set of them. And so I'll start Bob tonight, and then I'll continue working on Ripley later. So Let me just see if I can do this. I believe I go to share screen. And then I go to, well, where's the one that I usually go to? Advanced. So I'm gonna get us all figured out, and then we're gonna switch computers, and then I'm not gonna be able to do it. And then I'm going to go up here and make it big.
Sure.
There you go. Okay, so here's my work surface. Here's Ripley. And this,
You have the ability to move that down.
and I do. Okay, so this is Bob. I'm going to take my piece of acrylic. Now I have some pieces that I cut for myself, and I cut them 8 by 8 because lo and behold, this place that I know you can get frames, they sell 8 by 8 frames. So that would be really easy just to do this and then stick it in a frame. Of course, when I put it in the frame, I'm going to frame it with a piece of paper behind it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut this image a little bit so that I can just tape it onto my plastic. I'm going to put my plastic on there. I'm going to try and get it as straight as I can and center it as I can on here because I don't want to have to mat or anything. So I'm just going to put that there. Grab my tape. I guess with this one, I'm just going to tape the sides. All right. So now that I have this, I've got the backwards image of this cat. Now, the one thing I was thinking about as I was doing this, like I always loved this picture of this is Bob, and it's Bob was a girl. The rule was we had to, all the animals in our house, if they were female, they still had to have a male name because my dad was the only guy. So he always felt outnumbered. So all the cats had boy names. Anyway, the one thing that I never liked about this picture was that her eyes were, doing the reflection. So I'm going to try and get around that by drawing in her eyes a little bit differently. So anyway, so all it is I'm just going to, now the nice thing about using something like a cat, because it's fur and the lines all show up and they look like fur. So, there's a style of drawing that's called hatching and cross hatching, which people do all the time with, other types of drawings. But, the scratches that I'm doing end up looking really like fur. So I guess my first thought is just to do something furry because it's easier. Anyway, so the only other problem I have with this one is there's a lot of dark here and it I don't want to do the background. I'm not going to do this whole square. I'm just going to do her face. So I'm going to have to make some decisions about where that ends and how much to do over here where the white is, because I'm going to have some sort of definition to show her face. But here we go. This is the sound it makes. And that's what I've been doing for hours.
So you're scratching where it's dark.
Yeah. So I'm basically just doing, I'm finding the dark area and I'm just going to sort of scratch where it is and sort of kind of follow where I think the hairs would be going or things like that, trying to keep it sort of, isn't that a great sound?
Oh, it's wonderful.
And this one's going to take me a long time because there's so much dark on it that, I'm going to have to do. But even, as I'm doing this eye, there's still, even though she's got dark coming down here also, like this little area here, I'm going to lower my camera a little bit so you can see maybe. I got this new camera arm that Bill gave me. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Now we can really do close-ups. So I can work in. And now my plastic is pretty thick, so it's sitting quite a bit above the picture. So I kind of have to just sort of be careful and sort of turn the picture as I go. see how she turns out. Ripley was probably the easier cat to do because he's kind of all just one color, or I guess he's got nice sort of variation in his coloring, whereas
It looks like sometimes you hold your knife on the side and sometimes upside down for a sharper point. Do you
Yeah.
change the orientation of your knife for the different gouges?
not really. I'm just trying to find a comfortable hand position. So I don't know if it makes a difference.
So the thickness of the gouge doesn't really matter.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I could make thinner ones, but I'm not really being really precise with them either. I'm trying to go fairly quickly because, I mean, that's sort of how I work is working fairly quickly. And it's just doing a little bit of a cross here because I want to blend in this area here that's sort of, I can see almost her whiskers a little bit. And yeah, they go down here. So that's going to be fun to try and do. But I also want to show sort of the white hair diminishing into the black. She was a calico, my buddy. So it's kind of difficult because even like here, like I'm going to do all this dark part here. I keep looking up at the camera and seeing what I'm doing, but I'm also going to have to come in here with lines. And, you know, I've got a bit of a challenge with the eye because I'm really going to have to sort of wing that a little bit. But even with this eye here, with this gray, I'm going to have to come in and do something interesting to create sort of that look of the iris that is a little bit different from the other marks.
Leslie, are you doing this?
No, I'm just watching because I
Yeah.
couldn't go out to get the materials. So
Yeah. Why didn't you tell me? I would have driven over and dropped off some plastic for you. Although you may not feel like doing this. I know I was kind of kicked to the curb when I had it. So
yeah, I'm just sort of managing what I can each day. And the first day was sort of the worst, and the rest is just kind of crappy cold and limited energy. So
yeah.
and I can't go anywhere. So, you know, you're masking up if you have to leave the room, and I can't.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm stuck. So
yeah.
Elizabeth, what are you drawing?
Well, my sister's in Alaska right now, and she just spent a week on Kodiak Island, and she got this really pretty good picture of a grizzly bear catching
Oh
a
my
fish.
goodness. Yeah.
So I'm doing her bear
cool.
because all my pets have been dead too long, and I don't have any pictures of them that are good enough to be able to work with.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a cool picture.
I didn't realize the acrylic needed to be that thick. Mine's too thin to do this.
No, it doesn't have to be this thick, right?
No, I have book cover thickness.
Well,
It's
this
very, no, think book cover, think hardcover
Oh.
book cover.
okay.
I did not realize that it needed to have substance.
I don't know if it does. I mean, you could try it, right? If it
It
has
would-
a,
It would tear through it.
or would it? Okay.
It's too thin.
Like a Mylar.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have anything around the house either.
I just misinterpreted the instructions.
Well, maybe I didn't make them clear enough, so I should have a look at that and.
No,
um,
I just thought it was like like a notebook divider thickness, that sort of thing. That was what I was thinking. And
You
then
know, it might still work. I mean, if we use like, I mean, I have some of that I don't know where it is.
Well, what I've got is even thinner than notebook divider thickness. It's, I didn't, no big deal. I can try this again another time. I just wasn't quite sure.
Is it as thick as maybe like an overhead projector?
It's not that thick. It's really thin. It's literally, it's actually, this is basically what I use when I put covers on my hardback books. That's what it's
Oh, I
for.
see.
It's
Yeah.
very thin.
It is very thin.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've done like a little bit around her eye, and I'm just trying to get sort of a little bit there that works. So I'm going to show you the next part, because sometimes you need to sort of get the ink going to see how it looks. But I'm going to do it on Ripley because I had already done some scratching tonight, and I'm just going to do a little bit of the ink to show you, because then you can, try some ink, wipe it off, and see what happens. So what I'm using is, I have some Black India ink. This is for my Repetograph pens, which are drafting pens. But with this ink, when it gets old, you can't put it in your pens because it gets all gross. So this is perfect ink for me to do something like this with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some on my picture. And then I'm going to take my rag and I'm going to rub it in to the whole picture. Great,
Now
huh?
that's artwork.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay, then I'm going to use another part of the rag just to sort of wipe it off a bit.
And that's how you make the Rorschach.
Yeah, make a raw shot. Okay. And if you really wanted to clean it up good, I mean, you can take a little bit of water. Sorry, I didn't mean to jiggle my camera. My spray bottle stopped working, so I have to dab. You can just take a little bit of water and just clean it up really good. And then you can check to see your progress on your, with that piece of, oh, I don't need to turn it upside down.
So it's just filling in where you've scratched is what it's doing.
Exactly. So, I mean, if I was going to do this drawing with a pen, I mean, those would be my pen marks and stuff like that too. So, and it's kind of neat. I mean, let's come to my table now. I've got some interesting things that I've done with the eyes where, he just had these little slits of eyes, but then I've done a little bit of coloring around the eye and stuff like that. So it's coming along. I see that like in the original picture, he's very dark. He's very dark down here and he's very dark over here. So that's sort of what I'm working on right now, is trying to just darken up those darker areas so that I have more of a difference between the dark and the light, and then it shows up a little bit better. So, oh my God, the tape is sticking to my, so with Bob, I'm just
got a question about around the eye. So are you just going to do fewer strokes around the eye, or less deep, or both to have it lighter? You know what I mean?
for this
Versus dark.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's Bob so far. And I mean, I haven't done as much as I wanted to do on her yet, but I'm just going to show you what I've got so far and how it's looking. So if I put that in, wipe it off. Now I'm just going to undo my tape here. And I mean, you don't have to do an animal. I mean, people did pen and ink drawings that look like this all the time. So you could do a landscape or something like that. So this is where I'm at so far with her eye. Right. So I've done some really, really sort of fine lines around here because it's just a light gray that's inside her eye. I'm just going to show you this side of her eye. It's more like a lighter gray, right? So I'll work on that until I get it sort of right. This has to be really dark because it's black, right? So I'm going to have to do a lot more over scratching on these parts to make it darker. And then I'm gonna try changing the picture by darkening this. I'm gonna darken this to make it really, really dark so that it doesn't look like she is a zombie or glowing eyes or something like that. So I'm gonna see if I can do my own version of red eye correction. So that's sort of where I'm at with that.
So each time you apply the ink, does it get darker or it just embeds itself in new lines?
In new lines. So if I want to make it darker, I'm going to have to go back over what I've done and make more scratches. And it's the
Okay.
same thing if you were using a pen and you were doing a hatching sort of hatching, like doing hatching or cross hatching a picture with a pen, you would go much more to get it as dark as possible. And
Yeah.
lighter hatches in the lighter areas.
More strokes and heavier strokes versus
Yeah.
fewer and finer strokes.
That's right. And with the scratching thing, I don't really have the luxury of thicker strokes. I'm mostly getting about the same size. Now, whether I'm turning my blade or not, I don't think I'm getting any different size lines. But if I keep, you know, I'm going to scratch this again, then I'm going to put some more ink on, and then you can see if it's getting darker in this area. I guess I'm going to be going to Victoria soon, and I guess I won't be able to do this on the plane.
Only for a minute.
The blade and the scratching noise.
They'll kick you off the plane.
They'll
and
kick me
take
off the
away
plane.
your toys.
Take away my knife.
Your tools, yeah.
Would they even let you on the plane with that thing?
No,
Well, it's less than an inch blade. Does that count?
I don't care. Okay, I'm just gonna put a little bit more ink on here and show you what the new scratches look like and see if it's made a difference to
A
the,
brave woman using India ink,
why?
because whenever I use that stuff, I used to use it with my rapidograph pens, but man, I'd make a mess of stuff. I'd get it where I didn't want it and it never comes off.
Yeah, I used a lot of pens. So. Okay, so I just did like a little bit extra on that one spot, just to show you how it's gonna get darker, I hope. So I just did more scratching, more scratching down in this area, and then added the ink again. So you can see that it's starting to get darker there. And, you know, even in this area here, I'm going to be doing some scratching because it's not like, none of this is white other than the hole where it's glaring, but everything else in that area is like a light gray. So like I'm going to have to scratch into this too, because I don't want it to be super white. I want it to be a little bit gray. And then there's this line here that's a lot darker. And it's really, you know, one of the things when you're drawing, and that's nice about this, is that I'm not trying to draw a cat. I'm trying to emulate the different colors and the different shades is what I'm really doing. So you
Which
don't
is
have,
what you do when you draw.
like if you're drawing and you're struggling with drawing something, sometimes if you draw it upside down, your brain actually draws it better, because instead of trying to draw a horse or whatever you're trying to draw, you're now just drawing, especially if you're copying something, now you're just copying shapes. I don't recommend trying to draw a horse in real life upside down.
Because all the blood rushes to you.
Yes, you're right, Bill. All the blood rushes to your head.
Unless you turn the horse upside down.
Yeah, good luck with that. So anyway, so I mean, this is going to be a real boring class if you're just sitting there watching me scratch little lines into this, and it's going to take me a long time to do this. So it might just be a short night, and then I will continue working on it and show you what it's like, unless you guys have more questions or want to see anything else.
Does the ink that you use need to be that fluid, or could you go over it with, say, like you couldn't do it with like a thick Sharpie marker. You'd need to use some sort of fluid ink. Is that right?
And if your Sharpie was sharp, like if your Sharpie, sorry, not as sharp. If your Sharpie is new, you might be able to do it. Oh, you know,
I don't know if it would wipe off. Your
Yeah, it
Sharpie
would.
might off.
It doesn't wipe off like with water. That's the thing with a Sharpie. The Sharpie is alcohol based. So
But that
yeah,
even cause you to ruin your work.
it wouldn't ruin the work, but what happens is if you want to get all the black off, you have to use rubbing alcohol, and it might actually, that rubbing alcohol might actually get into the lines and take the Sharpie off.
What about a highlighter?
No, not a highlighter.
You need different colors.
So Sharpie, maybe not.
But maybe
So-
like a black Crayola marker.
Yeah, or you could try paint. Right, just,
Yeah, is there an alternative other than, is there a non-permanent equivalent to India ink that's relatively inexpensive?
I was at the art store today and all I could find was the India ink.
yeah, I
But-
mean, they have like little
Big store.
bottles. Yeah, they have little bottles of ink, but I mean, most of it's India ink.
If you went with black paint, what would be the best kind of paint to try?
You want to try and get a fluid paint.
Like I've used those really liquidy acrylics in the past. They kind of move like water.
Yep, that
Would
would
that
work just
work?
fine. Yeah, that would probably go right into those lines. And then again, you just sort of wipe it off just to get your scratches. You know, even when we were doing these bottles, right? So I was using a pretty thick paint, but I was putting the paint on and then I was wiping it off because I wanted it to get into all these little crevices and stuff in the tape and stuff like that. So that would still work on this if you were doing it with the color or with that paint.
Are you going to end up marking your four corners of your image when you frame it, or are you just going to have your play that one more by ear? Does that make sense? You know how you have an image with nice distinct corners?
I am not going to use those corners. I'm going to do just like what I'm doing with Ripley. And because I'm not using the square, I'm just going to make it a picture of Ripley. So this background is not going to be there. So the background for Bob, I'm not doing all this area up here. I'm just going to do her. I'm just going to do her. I can see where she ends here. I can't really see here, but I have a pretty good idea. So that's probably what I'm going to do is just try and make it as, I'll probably do a little bit of her chest here, and I can see her back is a little bit here. I'll probably, do a little bit of that and see how it goes from there. It's kind of, for me, it's still a bit of an experiment because it's new and, I'm just trying these things out. So. Really, part of the reason I'm doing this is because sometimes in this place that I worked, it has scraps. I'm like, what can I do with that? I always have to find a use for everything. So anyway, it should be interesting. So is there any other questions?
So sorry.
I was just thinking about that. This is like what did they call that? They used to do it to illustrate books, but they would scratch into a metal plate and then they would put the ink on, but then they would put a paper on top of it.
Yeah.
And roll over it and pick it up.
Yeah.
Was that intaglio?
No, the name has just gone right out of my head. I want to say something like that. Serigraph. No, it's not that. It's a lithograph. Is that right?
No, lithograph is on stones.
Oh. I can't
think-
remember what it's called.
Hmm.
Don't you hate it when you know what it is, but it just,
Yeah.
the name is just gone out of it. Hmm?
I mean, I learned it in college, like what, 20, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. I don't know, long time ago.
Yeah. Can't quite remember. Leslie, did you have a question?
Yeah, regarding where I would find this plastic
Yep.
sheeting at Michael's, what
Yep.
department? Where
You
would
know-
I look?
It's on an end cap on aisle 4.
Okay, that's the one down by you.
If you just go in and ask somebody where you could get like small plastic sheets, they'll show you where they are.
Okay, so it's plastic. It's
Plastic or
considered-
acrylic, yeah.
Okay,
You think
And
the
what
end of
does it
aisle
mean-
4 works in the US?
Hmm?
I said, do you think the end of aisle 4 also works in the US?
No, it only works in the one that's close to me. So
each
then-
store is laid out differently,
a
so,
little bit, yeah. So, and I'm liable to tell you that, and then next week they'll change it because they are doing a reset or something. So,
yeah.
Well, I'll go
So
into
what,
Michael's
what,
and say,
what sort of size are these sheets?
I think that the sheets that I saw there were, I think they had 4x6 and 5x7. They
Oh,
might,
okay.
and there might be
Sounds
8x10s too.
are they
yeah.
the same thickness you're working now, or are they
No,
thinner?
they're thinner. Be-
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm just using a scrap of framing acrylic, which is quite a bit thicker. I'd say that the thickness that I have here is 1/8 of an inch. Whereas the thickness that this little guy from IKEA is maybe a 16th or a 32nd. I don't know. It's pretty thin. So
It's thin, but it's not floppy, it's still rigid.
if I can bend it, right? So the nice thing about this kind of acrylic that you get from IKEA is that it's really easy to cut it into the size that you want, because you just use a knife and a metal
Right.
blade, and you just score it a couple of times and then you can snap it. This stuff is not as easy to cut. But again, if you're trying to cut a piece of acrylic, even if it's this thick, you just use that metal ruler. You can use it do it with a utility knife. You just have to score it about 1 billion times, and then you should be able to snap it. And then it makes a nice clean edge, hopefully. So, is there any other questions? I don't want you guys to sit here listening to me scratch poor little Bob all night. No more questions? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call it a night for this. I'm gonna stop the recording, but I need to talk to you guys before I go, okay?
And Elizabeth, can we see what you've done so far?
Okay, let me just switch it to the shared screen so that when she shows, I can see it too, and everybody can see it. Let me just,
Well, I haven't inked it yet.
oh,
What do you
Just give me a second. Like, give me a
Okay.
second to put some ink on it
okay.
so you can see it.
Look at my new camera thing. Isn't that cool? I'm just gonna put it out.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So you're spotlighted, Karen.
Okay, so I just need to go up here and,
On the top left, you can see your top left. That's
Oh.
the other left down, right at the picture, yeah, right there. Remove
there we go.
spotlight. There you
Okay,
go.
there we go. Now we're looking at Spencer.
Quit breathing so heavy.
Anyway,
Okay.
I have dental hygiene tools that might work well.
oh, that would work really well, right? A scraper on one of those would be really cool.
Ooh, that's really good to think about, because
You
I
can,
have some of
you
my.
can pick them up
other-
for like 2 for $1 at like an army surplus store, Les.
Or Princess
Well,
Autumn.
I've got some downstairs that used to belong to Audrey. I'll have to go and see what we have. She
Yeah.
had some odd medical tools.
Oh, yeah, those are always fun.
Okay, mine doesn't look like much yet,
No, but yeah, neither does mine. So,
but that's what I have so far.
okay.
That's just the side of his face,
Yeah.
the shadow side. I think I gotta do a lot more scratching yet. 'Cause
Oh, yeah. Oh, she's freezing again. Okay. Nobody else is frozen, just Elizabeth. Okay, so I'm just going to continue on there. I'm just going to move back the spotlight to me.
It's a big job, that's for sure.
On the little blue box, Karen, you can do the spotlight right there, the little blue box on the right side now.
Oh, no, I can't see where that is. Sorry, Bill's trying to show me what I'm doing here. Oh, spotlight for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyway, thanks for joining us as we do these. So I'm going to have Ripley and Bob done. I don't know when. It does take a long time, right? So Elizabeth has her work cut out for her because she's got a nice, really complex picture. So anyway, I'm still considering that Ripley is not done. So I'm going to be working on him some more. I'll probably work on Bob for a little bit. I don't know when I'll be able to show you them. So thanks for joining in. I'm going to stop the recording now and then I'm going to talk to you guys real quick. Okay. See you soon.